Hello everyone, welcome to Wednesday Night Live. So happy to have you back with us on our YouTube channel. Once again, you can always follow us live each Wednesday at 8 p.m. on Instagram and Facebook, and we will worship together. Something that we don't get here on YouTube is our worship segment. I have 3 other young ladies that join us for some worship and inviting God into this place when we are leading live. And so if you want to be a part of that experience, join us live or watch on playback on my Facebook page. But like I said, so excited that you're with us tonight. We are starting a new series called Take Courage, Take Heart. This is week 1 of this series, and each week we are going to be talking about how to overcome fear, anxiety, and doubt. Our key verse for this series is going to be from Psalm 31:24, and it reads, "Be strong and take heart, all you who hope in the Lord." And I love the Message translation of this verse. It says, "Be brave, be strong, don't give up, expect God to get here soon." In this series, like I said, we are going to be talking about how to tackle and overcome fear, anxiety, and doubt. The 3 words that I believe are the biggest hindrances in our faith. I believe these 3 words really get in the way of us having true faith in God. And so let's just take a moment just to define each of these 3 words. Fear is defined as an unpleasant emotion caused by the belief that someone or something is dangerous, likely to cause pain or a threat. Anxiety is a feeling of worry, nervousness, or unease, typically about an imminent event or something with an uncertain outcome. Then we have doubt, which is defined as a feeling of uncertainty or a lack of conviction. With my clients, I often talk about the difference between fear and anxiety, because a lot of people, I think, use those words interchangeably, but they in fact are very different. So an analogy that I learned while I was in grad school, I have my master's in social work, just a little plug, and shout out to all my social workers out there. And an analogy that I learned about the difference was, imagine that you're standing in a forest, okay? And you see a huge black bear, and you're like, what? So you start running for your life because there's a huge black bear and it's like protecting its cubs. So you run out of there because you're afraid. You have fear. Anxiety is a little different. Anxiety is saying, well, I don't want to even go into the woods because there might be a big black bear hiding in there. Fear is the presence of an imminent threat. There's actually something to be afraid of. Whereas anxiety, there's just a worry, or a worry of something that you don't have any proof that's there, but you're just constantly thinking about it or worrying about it. And then we have doubt, which I guess technically is, separate from fear and anxiety. Those two kind of go together, and doubt's kind of on its own in terms of definition wise. But I believe that doubt sets in when we don't have a tangible proof of something. That's when doubt sets in. But this is when faith shows up. Hebrews 11:1 says, "Faith is the assurance of things hoped for, the certainty of things not seen." 2 Corinthians 5:7 says this, "For we walk by faith and not by sight." By these 2 very definitions, doubt and faith cannot coexist. Doubt is not trusting or believing because we can't see, and faith is trusting and believing in spite of what we cannot see. That's the difference. But what we can't see gives us anxiety. We can't see our husband or our wife or that spouse that we're praying for in our near future, so we start to worry and wonder, are they even coming? Where are they? We can't seem to find enough numbers in our bank account to pay the bills at the end of the month. We can't see what a day without depression would feel like. Or the opposite, what we can see can give us fear. We can only see the bills piling up and the eviction notices at the door. We can see our children walking away from a life with God and into a life of sin. We can see our loved one laying in a hospital bed with a death sentence. Doubt, fear, and anxiety all at one point or another have overcome us. I want to share a quick Bible story that most of you probably may have already heard of. It's about the story of Jesus calling out to his disciples on the water and Peter actually walking out to Jesus walking on water. So the chapter that we're going to be, or the book that we're going to be reading it out of today is Matthew, and this starts in chapter 14, verse 22 through 23, and I'm going to read it with us. Right away, Jesus made the disciples get into the boat. He had them go ahead of him to the other side of the Sea of Galilee. Then he sent the crowd away. After he had sent them away, he went up to a mountainside by himself to pray. When evening came, he was there alone. The boat was already a long way away from land. It was being pounded by waves because the wind was blowing against it. Early in the morning, Jesus went out to the disciples. He walked on the lake. He saw him, the disciples saw him walking on the lake and were terrified. "It's a ghost," they said, and they cried out in fear. Right away, Jesus called out to them, "Be brave, it is I, don't be afraid." "Lord, if it's you," Peter said, "tell me to come out on the water." Jesus said, "Come." Then Peter got out of the boat, walked on the water, and came towards Jesus. But when he saw the wind, he was afraid and began to sink. He cried out, "Lord, save me!" Immediately Jesus reached out his hand and caught him. "You of little faith," he said to Peter, "why did you doubt?" And when they climbed back into the boat, the wind died down. Then those who were in the boat worshipped him, saying, "Truly you are the Son of God." I want to break down this story for a second and just point out a few things. The first thing I want to point out is the crowd that Jesus was sending away. Those of you might be familiar with the story of the feeding of the 5,000, where Jesus fed 5,000 people with just a little boy's lunch of 2 fish and 5 loaves of bread, and he miraculously made that was able to feed 5,000 people with just those 7 things. And so the crowd that he had just performed that miracle, and then he was sending the crowd away, and then we're at this story. The second thing I want to point out is that Jesus sent the disciples away when the storm was coming. So the windstorm was not a surprise to Jesus. Jesus sent them into the storm for a reason, not only to test their faith, but to teach them something about himself that they did not know yet. The third thing I want to is that all of the disciples were afraid when they saw Jesus standing out on the water. All of them were afraid. Every single one of them. But the fourth thing and the final thing I want to point out about this story is that Peter, he was the only one that asked for proof. Jesus, he only asked Peter to come out on the water. And why? Because Peter was the only one who asked. Peter said, "Lord, if this is really you, tell me to come out to you. Put me in an impossible situation that only you can save me out of. And I want to see if you really are God, if you really are Lord." And the great thing is that Jesus didn't even get mad at Peter for asking. Jesus didn't even get mad at Peter for testing that faith, for testing that belief. Let's do a little self-examination really quick. Let's just ask ourselves, who are we in the story? Are you more like the disciples, where when doubt and fear and worry set in and you're put in a tough situation, do you just sit there? Do you just sit in your boat? I know that this used to be me. I know, and I'm not trying to come for you or come to your house or anything, but I'm saying that because I know what that's like, because that used to be me. Or are you like Peter? Do you ask God to make his presence known in your life? To make his presence known in your situation? You ask yourself, do you ask God, "Lord, if it's really, really you, I need you to show up. I need to see you move. I need to see you in this place, in this space right now. God, if it's really you, I need you to show up." But just like Peter, don't ask God to show up if you're not going to seek him in the process. Jesus, he was already walking on water. There really was not much else left for Jesus to prove that he was God, that he was Lord. But it was because Peter was willing to come to Jesus. It was because Peter's curiosity was because Peter saying, Lord, if it's you, I want to know. And if it really is you, then I'll be willing. I will walk on that water because I trust you that you'll be able to see me through it. If you really are God and this really is you and you're really putting me in this situation for a reason, and Lord, I might be scared and the winds and the waves may be crashing down all over me, but God, if it's really you, I know that you'll see me through it. Peter, even in his fear, he decided to step out on that boat and walked on water. That's when the miracle was able to happen. And while Peter had his eyes fixed on Jesus, he was able to walk on water. I don't know about you, but I remember, I really didn't grow up in church too much, but I do remember reading or hearing about this story when I was younger. And I remember, maybe you guys have done this too, but I went to the pool and I tried to step off the edge and gently walk on top of the water. And you already know what happened. I fell right through. But Peter really walked on water. Peter was a normal human. He was a normal human like you and me. He didn't have any special abilities. He didn't have any special power. All he had was the Lord and his faith in the Lord, and he was able to walk on water. But the second Peter focused his eyes away from Jesus and focused on his situation, he began to sink. The second he started to focus on the winds and the waves crashing around him, he began to sink. See, at the end of this story, Peter tells Jesus, "You have little faith. Why did you doubt me?" And I want to just take it one step further, that I don't think it was just Peter's absence of faith that made him sink. It was the presence of doubt. It wasn't just the absence of faith, but it was the presence of fear that made Peter sink. Some of you, your problem is not just your faith, it's your fear. You're focusing on what you see, and you're focusing on your situation, and you're focusing on your circumstances instead of focusing your eyes on Jesus, who calls you out upon the water, the great I am. God is calling you out on the water for a reason. God is not surprised by your storms. He's the one who sent them. He sent them not just to test your faith, but to teach you something about who he is. The Bible tells us that we go from glory to glory, from faith to faith. So when you think that you've reached the peak of your faith, you've reached the climax of your Christianity, God wants to take it to the next level, because we go from glory to glory and faith to faith, and there are always new levels to this journey. God is not surprised by the wind and the waves of your life, because he's the one who sent them so that he could show himself to you. Some of us, we are falling victim to situations that God already called us victorious over. So take courage. Take heart, for the same God that called Peter out on the water in the middle of a storm is the same God who stands with you in your storm, the same God who stands with you inside your boat right now. Whatever boat you're in, whatever storm your boat is in right now, God is with you. He is inside your boat right now, and all he's saying is to you, son or daughter, tonight, he is saying, why do you have such little faith? I am right here with you. Trust me. Ephesians 6:16 says this, in all circumstances, not some circumstances, not just the easy circumstances, not just the really hard circumstances, but in all circumstances, take up the shield of faith, with which you can extinguish the flaming darts of the evil one. The enemy comes with only one purpose, and that is to steal, kill, and destroy. God comes so that you may have life and have it to the full, or have it in abundance. So let us take up our shield of faith, and let us use the armor of God. Let us use the armor of the power of God who can walk us through, and not just run us through situations, not just run us out of the storm, not just sprint us out of that boat, but to walk us through the storm, because God is not intimidated by any storm in your life. That's why he has the confidence to walk through it. God has the confidence to walk through your storm, and you may want to run and flee and sprint away, but God's saying, just take my hand. follow my lead, and I will walk you out of this, baby. And when you come out on the other side, you will be better and stronger and more powerful than you ever imagined. So take courage and take heart. Pick up your shield of faith tonight. Well, that is it for tonight's episode of Take Courage, Take Heart. Like I said, please feel free. We would love to have you join us live on Instagram or Facebook. I will link my handles below again so you can follow us on either one of those platforms. But hey, we are so honored and just filled with so much joy to walk through this journey of faith with you. And we're praying for you. And if you have any prayer requests, if you have any needs that you are really needing God to show up and intervene in, please, please, please reach out to us. Let us walk through this with you. Let us hold your hand. Let us fill you with scripture. And we encourage each other. We're all learning together. I have not arrived. God's still taking me from glory to glory and faith to faith, just as He's taking you. So let's just go on this journey together and be the community that we need for each other. Love you guys. I will see you next week on Wednesday Night Live. Peace. I'm still getting used to that little focus thing. I love that. I love technology. Okay, bye guys.